Hey everybody, it is Dungeon Master Mark, and we are bringing you part 3 of the Rise of the Drow Pathfinder campaign we're running here at my home. Pardon me. We're going to start off with where we sort of left off on part 2. The party was able to gain some information and some intel as to how they might be able to find where this Drow raiding party / slaving party escaped off to and into the Darklands or into the Underdark. Thanks to our Tiefling, who is our scout, who has the scent ability, they've been able to track the Drow. We're having a little bit of trouble locating them because of the stealth of the Drow, but the scent they were able to keep track, even though they had to double march a couple times, and they weren't able to quite overcome them by themselves. So they did have to kind of work overtime, if you will, to catch up with the Drow, since they were moving very, very fast-paced. Finally, we came to the area where it looks like there's 2 different drop-downs, of course, one on both sides. Let's see if I can pull it back up here for you guys. Over here towards this direction, the party encountered it looks like a dwarf that was slain. Looks like throat was slashed, bled out. And of course there's a couple carrion crawlers feeding on the creature. The party wasn't sure if this was someone who had escaped or if this was intentional, which they were able to deduce by heal checks and various other things. That looks like you have to pardon the dogs in the background there. Evidently it's Valentine's Day for the dogs too. But needless to say, the Drow, looks like, had sacrificed one of their slaves in order to kind of make an ambush of these carrion crawlers to slow down the party. On the other side, there was actually a couple Gricks, and then an advanced Grick on the other side, which looks like was baited into slowing down the party as well with another dwarf slave. So our dwarf in the party, of course, is extremely angry at this, that they're basically killing the slaves just for bait to try to slow them down. And then, of course, our battle cleric is struggling to kind of find a place in the combat itself. The whole time this is going on, of course, the party is being baited by some type of scout for what they believe is from the Drow army. They keep hearing noises, and then occasionally they see something in the distance. Of course, the Drow, since they have a 120-foot dark vision, versus the party's, the people who do have dark vision only have 60-foot, is able to stay fairly far enough ahead of them that he is out of range, out of sight. Finally, they're able to find this little cubbyhole area where they see this large, back out here, this large drop-down area. There we go. It looks like there's a large, like 60-foot cliff, and it just drops down into this open room. Now, at this point, the party can only see about 60 foot, so they can only see, say, right about to this area because of the distance and then the drop-down. The Drow, on the other hand, there's a couple Driders, and there's a party of 8 Drow altogether. One that's scouting ahead, one that's scouting behind, which has been harassing them. And then the captain there standing up on the raised area. They, of course, know that the players are behind them somehow. But, of course, the players obviously cannot see them because they just don't have the vision or the range. Now, the Drow, of course, have the 120-foot dark vision, so they can see them at the very far end of their range. So, as the players are trying to climb down, they are getting pelted with different effects. Mostly, of course, the crossbows, hand crossbows, and larger crossbows with sleep poison. Luckily, while climbing down, no one got poisoned, but it was a little dicey at times. Once they got almost all the way down to the end, there was magically some webs placed down the end by the Driders. They were able to, the Drow themselves did a lot of crowd control as far as ways to slow the party down. The whole time, of course, ushering the slaves in this little antechamber so they can get them where they were. They want to basically get them off the map, basically. The party was able to finally make their way down towards the bottom. Of course, we have a couple webs and a couple cloud spells there in the center, which was used to kind of block a line of sight between the party and then the actual Drow themselves. Once we were able to finally get the party to where they were able to engage, our Magus, who has a black blade, of course, is trying to slay as many drow as he can. That's the main purpose of his black blade itself. And then our wizard was able to summon a couple fiendish lions, a couple other little critters to try to slow down the antagonist or the drow. One thing to note when you GM a game like this, where the drow obviously are very, very crafty, they're very highly intelligent. You want to make sure that in a case of a race like this, they have very, very, very well planned their area of attack above hand. You know, they're very paranoid creatures. So they were able to, because of like the little different choke points, like these little vantage points where they had some of their warriors set up as kind of like snipers. They would focus on particular characters, different times. So they would take, I don't want to use the term called shots, but whenever someone would move out of combat, since the drow did not automatically have precise shot and things like that, they would take advantage of that. And the Driners themselves, of course, have the web. They also have lightning bolt and a couple other spells, so they were able to use that to devastating advantage in certain scenarios, which I'm not going to give too much information away. The drow captain, the gentleman you see over here wearing the kind of Spartan-looking armor. If I can zoom it in there. Of course, was a very roguish / ninja-ish type of drow. He was able to tumble and use acrobatics to get behind people to backstab to excellent advantage. Needless to say, our elf in our party went down, I believe, like the second or third round of combat, and he is now deceased, which the drow rallied behind that once the surface elf was dead, and of course they are now wanting to take these people as slaves. The drow were able to get all of the slaves off the very side of the map here. The party was able to push back and kill the Driders, the two Driders themselves, but I believe every single drow actually escaped. So the party was a little saddened by that, but they were able to wound a couple of the drow superficially, but they were able to save one of the slaves. They were able to get a little bit of background information as well. Now this was one particular encounter from this point here, which I'm going to say was probably every bit of about 2.5 hours maybe. And I know some of you are going to be like, wow, that was extremely long combat. It was a very, very, very long, well planned out combat on the party's half. They've been planning on a couple tactics of what they're going to do when they did meet with the drow. And I thought long and hard before I set up this particular encounter of how the drow were going to react. A lot of these rooms, like over here and over here, kind of loop together. The party did not explore all the way from over here to see how the rooms interact with each other. But of course, the drow that were on these kind of platforms, which the players just commonly refer to them as murder holes, of course, were able to take cover after they'd fired. So they did not offer a good line of sight for archers or anything like that. Of course, we don't have any gunslingers or anything like that either, but it's very hard, obviously, to aim targets at spells at people when you can't actually see them. The downside of that, the wizard was able to cast glitter dust on a couple of the drow to effectively take them out of the combat for the time being. But people like the roguish kind of ninja drow, the leader of this particular warband, were able to slow the party down to a point where they were not able to, I'm not even sure what the term I want to use is, where they're not able to effectively use some of the party's assets. Obviously, the summoner or our wizard, who would normally do a lot of crowd control, was taken out of a lot of the combat. Our elf shaman, who does a lot of channeling, obviously was dropped in combat very, very early, so there's definitely a lack of healing there. And you got to remember, when you do GM creatures like drow, they are going to take control of whatever advantages they can. So they are not above kind of luring you into a trap in a case like this, which they did effectively do. The party definitely fell into the trap, and of course one of the party members paid for it with their life. So, but that is pretty much it. This is pretty much it for Rise of the Drow Part 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, it's a little impromptu. I apologize for the shakiness of the camera there and the horrible freaking dog noises in the background. The dogs making out with each other. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.